class, we have talked about the Renaissance philosophy, okay, the reign of Queen Elizabeth and James the First, the rise of Stuart dynasty. Because Elizabeth was the last of the Tudor dynasty. Okay, she was the last one from the Tudor dynasty because she never married. She didn't have any heir to access the throne after her. That's why after her death, Tudor dynasty came to an end. And with that, I mean, she has actually selected her cousin brother who was ruling Scotland. Okay, he was called James the Sixth in Scotland, and in England he was known as James the First. Okay, his age is also known as Jacobean era. So in today's, I mean, successive classes, in today's class I will be talking about Jacobean era, Caroline era, and Commonwealth period. Okay, so Jacobean era is actually the reign of James I. Caroline era is actually the reign of Charles the First, and Commonwealth period is when Puritan controlled this Great Britain in the form of Lord Protectorate. Who was the Lord Protectorate during the Commonwealth period? It was Oliver Cromwell. So yes, religion was a vital question when Elizabeth ascends the throne. I told you that due to this religious reformation, you will see the political turmoil in the history of British literature. Okay, it will always, I mean, the Catholics and Protestant, that is Anglican. Catholics and Anglican are always in a kind of clash throughout the reign of Henry VIII, then Mary the First, then even in the time of Elizabeth. And all of them did everything in their power to execute the Catholics, okay, and also the Puritans, because they wanted to spread only Anglicanism. They were the advocate of Anglicanism only. So they will not want anyone who can trouble in future. But the thing is that you cannot extirpate, or you cannot just excommunicate or persecute everyone of a particular religion. Okay, so even if you are not happy with Catholics or Puritans, you cannot, I mean, execute all of them. There are, I mean, crores of people, millions of people. How can you execute them? How can you throw them out of your country? This is not possible. So you have to find a kind of midway. And this is what Elizabeth did. Within a short span of hardly 30 years, the country had experienced three religious settlements: the Anglo-Catholicism of Henry, okay, the radical Protestantism of Edward, and the return to Roman Catholicism under Mary. Elizabeth chose to be Protestant.
Sir,
Yeah,
sir, sir, I have a doubt. I mean, Anglican, is there any difference between Anglican and Protestant? I mean, in England, Protestantism is called Anglican. Right?
yeah. I mean, you were there during the class of this religious reformation.
Yes, but now I have a confusion.
Okay, okay,
So,
all right, all right.
I,
Don't worry about that. See, during the religious reformation, I told you that Protestantism came as the result of Martin Luther's 95 Theses in 1517, if you remember. Okay, so it was a kind of war against the corrupt Roman Catholic Church. So he came up with this idea of Protestantism. Now the other people in other countries, they followed the same Protestantism with different names. So John Calvin in Switzerland and Geneva followed Calvinism. Henry VIII followed the same Protestantism with a new name, Anglicanism. So Anglicanism is nothing. It's like they are all brothers, okay, cousin brothers. Protestantism, Anglicanism, Presbyterianism in Scotland, then Puritanism again in England. So Puritanism and Anglicanism are a kind of war against Roman Catholic Church. But only thing that disturbed this uh, English landscape is that they have not came up with only Anglicanism, but also with Puritanism, and later on they also came up with this Quakerism. So it's like mingling of many of the, I mean, religion. So whenever you will find many religion at a particular place, the clash will happen during the course of time. And this is what happened in the case of England. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. So Elizabeth chose to be Protestant as her father was. He was also accepted this Anglicanism, which was the form of Protestantism, and even her brother Edward VI, the son of Henry VIII, he also accepted Anglicanism. Okay, only it was Mary the first, the Bloody Mary, who accepted this Roman Catholicism again. So Elizabeth restored the Act of Supremacy and Uniformity, which has been, if you remember, the Act of Supremacy was passed by. Can any one of you tell me? Act of Supremacy passed in which year and by which king? Those who were in the initial classes and also in the Reformation class.
I think it's something around 13 and 12 and
1534 by Henry VIII, isn't it? Henry VIII actually
yeah.
passed this Act of Supremacy. He declared himself supreme governor of the country. Okay, he put himself up above the church also. He controlled this Anglican church. He detached himself from this Roman Catholic church and he came up with this new Anglican church. He declared himself the, supreme governor of this Anglican church. So, Elizabeth again restored this act of supremacy and uniformity. Uniformity means the uniformation of England, Scotland, and Wales, along with Ireland. The Queen now called herself the supreme governor of the church and not the supreme head. Remember, Henry VIII called himself supreme head of church. But because now Elizabeth has to choose a kind of middle path in order to, get away with this religious clashes. So she declared herself as supreme governor, not supreme head. And this little change in title means a lot. She is trying to choose a middle path where there will be less violence. So this change of title was a concession to Catholics. Okay. She's saying that no, I'm not persecuting you, I'm not executing the Catholic, and I'm also not denying you this citizenship. So Catholics and Protestant or Anglicans, they live side by side. They can live here. No issues with that. So the new Act of Uniformity introduced a modified prayer book also. See this, because of this book of common prayer, many people died, such as Thomas Cranmer, and there were other, Wycliffe and all. They were executed. This was a book of common prayer followed by the, church there in England. So she did a kind of little alteration to this prayer book so that there will be no more a kind of religious clash between the Catholics and the Protestants. The Queen made the transition to Protestantism with relative ease. The national religion of England, which is Anglicanism, dates from the time of Queen Elizabeth. Okay, she declared Anglicanism as the national religion. Now what? Now Elizabeth's church was attacked by a sect called the Puritans. Okay, now Puritans are coming to the show. Now, Puritan is nothing but a kind of form of detached from this Roman Catholic Church, but they were more conservative in thinking in comparison to the Catholics. Okay, Puritans were more conservative. They were very strict. They used to follow this moral code of conduct. If you have read this novel, by Nathaniel Hawthorne, what is the name of the novel? Okay, yeah. So Elizabeth's church was attacked by a sect called the Puritans. Puritans were very rigid, very, conservative. They follow this strict moral code of conduct. This is very much evident in the novel Scarlet Letter written by Nathaniel Hawthorne. So they were English Protestants who fled England during Queen Mary's reign. Okay, they fled England because they knew that Mary is going to kill us. Living on the continent, they were strongly influenced by John Calvin. Okay, they were influenced by the ideas of John Calvin, who propagated the idea of Calvinism, and they returned to England as radicals during Elizabeth's reign. Okay, they returned as a radical and they called themselves Puritans. The Puritans disapproved of the compromise in Elizabeth's church. Elizabeth was highly irritated by the Puritans and appointed John Whitgift as the Archbishop of Canterbury. He hated the Puritans and managed to silence them through imprisonment and execution. It's not that Elizabeth was totally, washed with this milk. Okay, she was also like her sister, Mary the First, but she did it very politically and wisely. So she put many of the Puritans and Catholics under imprisonment and executed also, like that of Mary. So we have seen that there is this reformation going on where we can see that many of new religions are coming to confront this Roman Catholic Church. But counter reformation was also going on. What is counter reformation? That Roman Catholics are again fighting that no, don't leave this Roman Catholic. Okay, Roman Catholic is the oldest surviving kind of church or religion. So those who are leaving, they are sinners. So they are beginning this counter reformation. And again, I will refer to this that play, Mother Courage and her children. There you will see the fight between Roman Catholics and the Protestant. 30-year long war started in 1618 in Spain and other parts of Europe. Not in England, but in Spain and other parts of Europe. So some countries like Spain and Italy, which had strong Catholic rulers, introduced the Inquisition. Inquisition was a kind of code. Okay. Um, and yeah, again, I will refer because this term Inquisition is there, so I will refer to that book by Umberto Eco. The Rose of the Flower. What is the name of that novel? The Name of the Rose, if I'm not wrong. So the Name of the Rose, written by Umberto Eco. There you will find this Inquisition. Okay, a kind of code. The people who were chosen by this Catholic Church, they will go and they will give decisions on tricky matters or on the matters of heretics. So they will be the kind of judge for such heretic incidents. So this was an ecclesiastical code. See, Inquisition was an ecclesiastical code which tried to stamp out heresy. What is the meaning of heresy? Can any one of you tell me? I have told this. Just wanted to confirm. What is the meaning of heresy? When you are saying something against church and religion, okay, you will be declared as heretic and a trial will be conducted on you and you will be executed. So Philip of Spain was the strongest of Catholic rulers and he became the temporal head of the Counter-Reformation. In the early 1500s, a serious attempt was made by Catholics to strengthen their religion. Ignatius Loyola founded the Society of Jesus in 1534, and this society is actually the member of this society are known as Jesuits. Okay, in literature you will get the reference of Jesuits every now and then. So they are actually the people belonging to this Society of Jesus, which was formed by Ignatius Loyola. Now let us come to the James one. I told you that Elizabeth actually handed her throne to James the First because she didn't have any children. She never married. That's why she was called the Virgin Queen. So because James I was a foreign king, so it will take some time to settle him down in England. So he was the first male to wear the English crown in 50 years. Unlike his Tudor predecessors, he also had responsibility for three separate kingdoms. So it's a huge responsibility. England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. When he ascended the throne, he called himself the King of Great Britain. And he also came up with this idea of divine rights of king, the philosophy about which I have talked in my last class. So he has been described as the most learned man who has ever occupied the British throne. Most learned man. And that is the reason why he came up with this idea of Great Bible in 1611. He was the most learned king. The Roman Catholics in England hoped for much from a son of the Catholic marriage because, see, James I was his mother was actually Roman Catholic. So The Catholics in England, they become happy that James will follow the Catholic religion, and this will be a good thing for Catholic, because Catholics were till that time they were executed, persecuted, thrown away from the country. So they were happy. As soon as he became king, James was inclined to be tolerant and waived the fine that Roman Catholics had to pay. And he did so. He took the side of Roman Catholics initially. Okay. Encouraged by this move, hundreds of Catholic priests from abroad came to England, and James was forced to reintroduce the fines. Okay. Now, Roman Catholics who were living outside of in other European nations, they started to come back to England. They thought that, okay, someone is Catholic, he is the king, he will support us. Everyone started to come back. And this led to James to again reintroduce the fines and taxes. Okay. This promoted the this prompted the gunpowder plot of 1605, where the Guy Fawkes and his other helpers, they tried to blast the parliament, isn't it? They planned to blow up the House of Parliament so that the king and the members of the House of Lords and Commons would perish. But somehow James I escaped that particular gunpowder plot. Very famous incident from UGC-NET point of view. Do remember the name Robert Catesby and Guy Fawkes? They were later on captured. The result of this plot was that severe laws were passed against Catholics, because Guy Fawkes and Robert Catesby, they were Catholics. They tried to kill the king. So James I, he became completely angry, and he passed many of the laws against Catholics. Okay. Now the Puritans who were dissatisfied with the Anglican settlement expected a lot from James, who had been brought up in the Presbyterian Church of Scotland. So there was this expectation from James I, from this Puritan community as well as Catholics. But he actually didn't help them, I mean, both of them. So Puritans presented the millenary petition signed by 1,000 Puritan clergymen. James did not want Puritanism to spread in England. He therefore called a conference of Anglican and Puritan clergymen at Hampton Court and made his position clear to the Puritans. What position? That I will not help you. Okay? I am the leader of Anglican. You can live here, but I am not going to levy the taxes and all from Puritans or Catholics. So it was during the reign of James I that the rift between the Puritans and the House of Stuart began. And this was also the time when the Puritans started to flee to the New England. New England, that is America. Okay? Because if you remember, by the time it is 1607, England has actually founded its colony, started to found its colony where? In New England, the modern day America. The first colony was Jamestown, Virginia. Okay. So many of them decided to flee to Holland and later sail to Mayflower to America. Okay. Many Puritans fled to Mayflower, the next, I mean, colony. Okay. The like Jamestown, there was this Mayflower also. So Puritans started to flee there because of the fear of persecution or execution. Okay. So now, the only good outcome of the Hampton Court Conference was the translation of the Bible. The king appointed a committee to carry out this task, and thus the authorized version was published in 1611 with the help of 47 scholars. Okay. James firmly believed in the divine rights of the king. I told you, James was the believer of divine rights of king, and I have told about this philosophy in the last lecture. Divine rights of king, they believed that king were appointed by God and were answerable to no one. Okay, they were answerable to no one. So he expected to find a quiet and submissive parliament, but was disappointed. the House of Commons exhibited an independent temper, which clearly indicated that the nation would not tolerate any high-handed ruling on the part of the king and his ministers. Apart from this, there were many Puritans in the House of Commons who were ready to oppose the king. So the clash between the parliament and king started to grow from this time only, and this become a kind of this is a kind of safety valve theory. Safety valve theory actually says that there is this pressure cooker. If you mount pressure more and more, the that particular knob will release the pressure, isn't it? In the pressure cooker, this happens, na? When excess of pressure mounts inside the, pressure cooker, so that knob lift up and the all the pressures are coming out from that knob. So this is happens. This is what happened in this case. James and Parliament, they were in clash. Later on, Charles the First was also in clash with Parliament, and the sudden explode actually led to the civil war, and civil war ended with the execution of Charles the First. So you can just imagine a king has been executed by the Parliament and the common people. It was a great event in the entire history of Britain. By the time James died, the situation in England was explosive. Okay, situation was explosive. Into this tense scene, Charles I stepped in. He was brought up to believe in the theory of the divine rights of king, but the situation was completely different. Now, Charles I, his time span is from 1625 to 1649. 1649 is the year when he was executed. Charles had married a Catholic, the sister of the Louis XIII of France, and this was resented by the Puritans. They said that, how can you marry a Catholic if you are a Protestant? To make matter worse, the Queen interfered in all political matters. See, there was this problem already going on between Charles I and Parliament, and the Queen, sister of Louis XIII of France, she started to intervene. She started to interfere in the political matters. So people got angry that if we have the King Charles I, why his wife is intervening in between, interfering in all the political matters. Charles called three parliament in 4 years. Okay, during his reign of 4 years, he called parliament three times for the meeting. Every time the parliament has been dissolved without any conclusion. Okay, so you can sense it's like the parliament happening nowadays in New Delhi. So sometime BJP used to walk out, sometime Congress used to walk out. That was happening during the reign of Charles I. So Charles I dissolved parliament when the member of parliament opposed him because he wants more money as a in the form of tax to fight war against Scotland, because there was this threat coming out from Scotland. Next year again parliament started, but it was again dissolved by Charles I. In March 1629, Charles I dissolved parliament for the third time in his 4-year reign. And in April 1640, after almost 11 years of silence, parliament reassembled again. Okay, from 1629 to 1640, there was no meeting happening between Charles I and the parliament. So after the gap of almost 11 years, again parliament and king, they sit together in parliament to discuss the matter. Okay. The next problem Charles had to encounter was the issue of religion. Charles loved the Anglican Church. Charles did not wish to entertain any recommendation for change in the practices of the church. There were several dissenters. Who were the dissenters? Those who broke away from the established church, like the Puritans. So Quakers and Puritans, they are actually the dissenters. They broke away from both Anglican Church as well as the Roman Catholic Church. So Quakerism was founded by George Fox in 1600. Okay. Later on, you will see Puritanism and Quakerism. These religions flourished in America, New England. Just remember this. When I will be talking about the American history, after I will be done with this British history, I will tell you about this. And also remember that Puritans started to flee to American land or the New England from now onwards. Okay, remember. Then what happened? Trouble from the parliament forced Charles to dismiss it. And for the next 11 years, he ruled without the parliament. Finally, a war with Scotland and the need for money forced him to summon the Long Parliament, which was to sit for 13 long years uh, and completely change the course of English history. Okay, this parliament actually, they become the, ruler next with the execution of Charles I. So again, this meeting led to more clash, more revolt, and parliament was again dissolved, which led to the civil war. So in April 1640, after 11 years of silence, parliament reassembled, but on January 1642, he ordered the arrest of 5 members of the parliament, and civil war started in 1642 as a result. Okay, because he ordered the arrest of 5 members of parliament, civil war began in England. And it ended with the execution of Charles I in 1649. Finally, peace has been prevailed by Oliver Cromwell in 1651 when he became the Lord Protectorate of England. Okay, so the increasing between the king and the parliament led to bloody civil war, which eventually broke out in 1642. The nobles, gentry, and the king were on the one side, and they were known as royalists. Okay, so the supporter of king were known as royalists. The majority of townsmen and yeomen fought for the parliament and were known as roundhead. Those who fought for the cause of parliament, they were known as roundhead. The roundheads were led by Oliver Cromwell, and after 3 years of severe fighting, they emerged victorious. The defeat of King sought the help of Scots to restore him to the throne. A second civil war followed in 1648, but was soon put down by the English army. The people were very angry with the king for conspiring with the Scots. Charles I was tried and found guilty of treason. He was executed in January 1649. With the execution of Charles I, the Stuart rule came to an abrupt end. Abrupt end for the next 10 to 13 years, because after that again Charles II will come and Stuart dynasty will begin. I will talk about that during my restoration class. Now from 1649 to till 1658, I told you that Oliver Cromwell was the Lord Protectorate, and this era is called Commonwealth or Republic era. Okay, also Puritanism, sometimes it is called Puritanism, because Oliver Cromwell was Puritan, his supporters were also Puritan. All right. So the government was then known as the Protectorate, with Oliver Cromwell as the Lord Protector. There then began what in modern times would be called a dictatorship. Okay, it was not monarchy, it was not the reign of king and queens, it was a kind of dictatorship. Cromwell was the head of the state, and he ruled England for the next 6 years with the help of the army. Acts were passed against swearing, dueling, horse racing, cockfighting, and beer betting. See, this was the moral code of conduct followed by the Puritanism. They also, shut down the theater in 1642. The Puritans. They were so, morally, they were so enthusiastic and so conservative that they have closed every source of entertainment. Theaters were closed. In spite of these attempts at enforced virtuousness, there was much to admire in Cromwell. Okay, Cromwell wanted to make this England virtuous. You cannot control such a such a vast area. You have to control Ireland, Scotland, England, everything, all the places. So you cannot make everyone virtuous with this power of Puritanism. After Cromwell died, things changed quickly. Oliver Cromwell's son, Richard Cromwell, was unsuited to the task of ruling a nation that was in a state of unrest. The army and the parliament quarreled. In the meantime, the people grew disillusioned with the new government. Why? Because they don't want this kind of moral code and strict laws. They want to, they were happy with this entertainment, the theater, and everything. Now they are completely, their rights were shut down completely all of a sudden. So they were completely unhappy with this reign of Oliver Cromwell. They have this ideal idea about Oliver Cromwell and the Commonwealth period, but that has been shattered down with the time. And they simply called Charles II, who was hiding in France because of the fear of this Oliver Cromwell and the Puritans. He was hiding in France. He was in exile in France. So people called Charles II from France to rule the country. And he simply came back and he became the king, Charles II, son of Charles I. Understood? So that is about all about the Renaissance period. Okay, I have told you about Elizabethan period, Jacobean period, Caroline era, and Commonwealth period. After that, there is this restoration of Charles II, restoration of monarchy, about which I will talk in my next class. Now, art and literature of Renaissance art and literature, I mean, it is very famous, especially because of the Shakespeare's work, the works of Marlowe, Philip Sidney. They were all a kind of literary, they produced the literary canonical texts. So they are the founding father of kind of modern founding father of the modern literature. Now, the important authors associated with this Elizabethan period and the Renaissance literature are Edmund Spenser. Okay, his works such as Shepherd's Calendar, Amoretti, Epithalamion, Astrophel. Okay, these are the important works written by Edmund Spenser. Then we have Philip Sidney. Okay, Philip Sidney is famous for his one of the pastoral work, which is Arcadia. Then Apology for Poetry, very important critical work, a work of criticism. Then his work Astrophel and Stella, which was a collection of 108 sonnet and 11 songs written in 1591. Then Sir Thomas Sackville. It was Sackville and Thomas Norton. Okay, Sir Thomas Sackville and Thomas Norton, who had written this very famous first tragedy in English, that is Gorboduc, which is also called Ferex and Porrex. Okay, Gorboduc, written by Thomas Sackville and Thomas Norton, first tragedy in English. Apart from this, Thomas Sackville also wrote this Mirror for Magistrate, The Induction, Complaint of the Duke of Buckingham. These are the works written by Thomas Sackville. These are not so much important. You can just remember the first tragedy, Gorboduc. Okay, and it was based on the idea of revenge tragedy. So if you know, revenge tragedy was very much influenced by Seneca. Seneca was the Roman author who started to write this revenge tragedy, and later on the Elizabethan playwright, they started to follow him. Now from the name, it is clear that someone is about to take revenge on some injustice. Okay, the one of the most canonical example of revenge tragedy is Hamlet. Okay, how Hamlet is trying to take revenge throughout the course of play. So that is a revenge tragedy, which is somehow indebted to Seneca. Senecan tragedy or revenge tragedy. Then we have George Chapman. George Chapman for the first time translated Iliad and Odyssey. And he has also completed the work of Marlowe. Marlowe has written this Hero and Leander, but he died. And that work has been completed by George Chapman. Hero and Leander. Then we have Michael Drayton. Michael Drayton is famous for his Ideas Mirror, a collection of sonnets. 52 or 51 sonnets are there in Ideas Mirror, written by Michael Drayton. Then we have a work called Polyolbion, The Baron's War, Heroic Epistles of England. These all works are written by Michael Drayton. Okay. Now, the first comedy in English is Ralph Roister Doister, written by Nicholas Udall. First tragedy, I have already told you, Ferex and Porrex or Gorboduc. Okay. First domestic comedy is, domestic play is Gammer Gurton's Needle. Okay. Gammer, Gurton, apostrophe S, So Gammer, Gurton's, Needle, and WDLE. This is the first domestic play, sorry, written in 1566 by William Stevenson. Okay. Then we have the works of William Shakespeare. I mean, in William Shakespeare, you have to read almost everything. You cannot skip anything when it comes to William Shakespeare. Ben Jonson, again, his plays are very important. You have to read almost all his plays. You have to also remember the name of his tragedies, Sejanus and Catiline, because he is famous for his comedies. But tragedies are also important, at least the names. Nowadays, UGC-NET are asking, NTA is asking question from Dick. Then Beaumont and Fletcher, they have written this play, Cymbeline and Griselda, Maid's Tragedy, A King and No King, Philaster. These are the works written by Beaumont and Fletcher. Then John Webster's The White Devil and the Duchess of Malfi. Thomas Heywood has written A Woman Killed with Kindness. The Changeling, Women Beware Women. These are the works written by Thomas Heywood. So um, they were writing during the reign of Elizabeth as well as James the First. Okay, it's not that they are writing only in the reign of Elizabeth. You will see most important plays, canonical plays are written during the reign of Jacobean era or James. Okay, now the session is open for question answer.